Hello, and welcome to my 20-year obsession with the Halloween franchise, which does not make me feel old at all. Please forgive the mess that is all of this. Um, so today I would like to talk about the Halloween franchise. I'm going to talk about the timelines, some fan theories. I'm going to talk about each film and maybe make some interesting observations. It's mostly in humor. I'm going to do a kill count. It's just, I'm kind of all over the place, but I do have an order, not chronological, because the Halloween franchise is too complicated for that. So, but there is some logic to this. I don't know how much, but some. And I'll have chapters below because it's going to be very, very long. So stick with me or fast forward, whichever floats your boat. Totally fair either way. The original Halloween came out in 1978 and has since spawned one of the largest and most beloved horror franchises with a total of, as of my making this, 13 films, and I am making this right after the release of Halloween Ends in 2022. Halloween also has one of the most complex timelines in, really any franchise. It's more complicated than the Terminator. It's ridiculous. Trying to figure out the Halloween franchise is literally a chore and a half. And by now, Laurie has come back like just as many times as Michael has. It's wild. I think Halloween actually might be one of the first franchises to ever do its own reboot. If not, it was definitely one of the earliest ones to do it. In 1988 with Return of Michael Myers. And it didn't stop there. It basically gets a soft or hard reboot every almost 10 years like clockwork. Pretty wild. So I'll see you again in 2028. The Halloween franchise is basically, and I'm not making this joke. A lot of people have made this joke, so not originating it, but I don't know who made it first. It's a choose your own adventure franchise, like those Goosebumps books. You remember those? I used to love the choose your own adventure ones. There was an alligator one. It was my favorites. Did anyone remember these? Anyway, yes, I really love Halloween, and I'm gonna try to explain it best I can. Who knows how good that will be? I certainly don't. So you have the original film, which opens in 1963 but takes place in 1978. Then you have the original Halloween 2, which was released 3 years later and still takes place in 1978. After that, we get what I call the Thorn Trilogy, although sometimes it is referred to as the Loomis timeline, which would be the fourth, fifth, and sixth films, also known as Returns, Revenge, and Curse, which take place in 1988, 1989, and 1995, respectively. After this, we get the Laurie sequels, or the Laurie timeline. I always called it the H2O timeline, whichever of those, which would be Halloween H2O and Résurrection, or the 7th and 8th installments of the franchise, which take place in 1998. And then Résurrection opens in 2001 and primarily takes place in 2002. After that, timeline-wise, we're going to get to the Blumhouse Trilogy, or what some people call the Michael timeline, which take place, well, the first two films take place in 2018, and the last film opens in 2019 and takes place primarily in 2022. We have the Realm Zombie remakes, which came out in 2007 and 2009 respectively, and take place in, kind of in 1990 for the first act, and then the second act and third act of the first film take place in 2007, and then the sequel, it depends if you watch the director's cut or not, whether it takes place in 2008 or 2009, which I don't understand why, but that was a thing they did. And then lastly, we do have the 1982 standalone film, sometimes people call it the anthology film, which is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which really has nothing to do with Michael Myers whatsoever, although I do think it's a great movie and a phenomenal horror film, and it doesn't really have much to do with the conversation of the Halloween franchise, but it is part of the franchise, so worth mentioning. Did I mention it is a choose your own adventure? It's very complicated. So let's start with the first movie that launched it all. Goodness. Halloween, The Night He Came Home. October 1978 was when this film was released. It was written by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill and is directed by John Carpenter. Okay, so the film takes place primarily in Haddonfield, Illinois, which is going to be where the majority, although not all, installments of this franchise do take place. Halloween night, 1963. 6-year-old Michael Myers, likely born in October, I'll get to why, 1957, kills his 15-year-old sister, Judith Myers. I know in H2O they had this big emphasis on Michael killing people when they're 17, so they retconned Judith to be 17 when he killed her. However, in the original film, we do very clearly see her tombstone. She was born November 10th, 1947, so as she was killed October 31st, 1963, she died about 10 days before her 16th birthday, which really sucks because typically a girl's 16th birthday is a pretty big deal. So, man, like, think about that. People probably had gifts prepared for her. Her parents probably already had a cake ordered. Like, that's just, you know, it's really, I mean, not only is like losing your daughter horrible, but like on top of that, like, you were about to celebrate this like milestone of her life. Yikes. Judith was making out with her boyfriend and Michael is across the street. And that's when we get that very famous like POV shot of Michael coming across the street, well, the camera as Michael going around the house and following his sister and her boyfriend upstairs, and then him leaving the house. Then he goes upstairs, he picks up the knife, he has the mask, and he kills his sister. And then he goes downstairs out the house and he's confronted by his parents, whose names are Peter and Edith Myers. I have a lot of questions about them. We'll get into that. And on, like, as a fun fact, side note, the Myers house is 45 Lambkin Lane. In case you wanted to know that. Probably didn't. Anyway, after this, Michael is institutionalized, where he's eventually committed to Smith's Grove Sanitarium under the care of the good, I guess, Dr. Sam Loomis, played to perfection by Donald Pleasance. And he has some really wonderful quotes throughout this movie. I would say I don't think Halloween works without Sam Loomis. And specifically, I don't think it works without Donald Pleasance as Sam Loomis. He brings such a gravitas to the role that I don't see. I know they wanted Christopher Lee, but I don't think he would have been as good, you know? And especially, I don't think he would have been as interested in the sequels as Donald Pleasance was so committed to Halloween. I gotta appreciate that. Anyway, I'll throw the quotes up, and you could probably need to pause to read them because I'm going to go kind of fast. So 15 years later, it's now 1978, and we see Nurse Marion Crane is going up to Smith Grove Sanitarium with one Dr. Loomis because they are going to need to sedate Michael to take him to court. So this is why I'm pretty sure Michael is born in October of 1957, because he would have likely have just had his 21st birthday around Halloween, and that's why he's going to court. So generally speaking, since he was only 6 when he killed his sister, he probably wouldn't likely have had to go, I mean, he would have had to go to trial, but he wouldn't likely have gotten, like, he wouldn't have been incarcerated for having killed his sister. However, because of his catatonia and I'm going to say not well mental state, he was likely institutionalized and remained institutionalized for the 15 years. So at this point, he would likely be going to court, as now he is 21, to see what the state will do to him. Yes, that's just, as Loomis said, that is the law. I don't know if that's a good law or a bad law, but that's just kind of how that works in these rare and unfortunate kinds of situations. So as it pertains to like Edith and Edith Myers, they don't explain what happened to them. We know obviously they clearly left 45 Lambkin Lane after the murder of their daughter by their son. But we don't quite know what happened to them. I think maybe in the next film it's mentioned. We'll see. So anyway, Michael Myers breaks out of Smith's Grove Sanitarium and steals Marion Crane's vehicle, which is actually owned by the state and has the state seal on it, which comes in to be very important later on, obviously, because that is how Dr. Loomis will recognize said vehicle. I don't know how Michael learned to drive. I do think that is a very good question. You know, Haddonfield's 150 miles away from Smith's Grove. But Loomis was right. He was driving very well that rainy night. So I would love the story about the, I don't know, I guess orderly who got bored and was teaching catatonic patients how to drive. Like, what was his day like? What's going on with his life? That's an interesting side story. We get introduced to our main protagonist, final girl, the 17-year-old Laurie Strode. So she was likely born around 1961. Played by the Scream Queen legend, Jamie Lee Curtis. Laurie's realtor father, Morgan Strode, asks her to leave the keys under the doormat of the Myers house as he's selling it. He is the realtor of Strode Realty. And so I do think this just begs a lot of questions. Like, in the first movie, it kind of makes sense that, like, being Strode Realty, he would be selling a house. And it would make sense that that house has been empty for 15 years. I just wonder, like, are the Myers selling it? Does he own the house? Is he selling it for a third party? Who owns the Myers house at this time? Why is it now up for sale? How long has it been up for sale? Is it recently been up for sale? He has an appointment at 10:30 for people to go look around the house, which is why Laurie is dropping the keys off, which is important because Michael's in the home, and that's when he first spots her going up to his doorstep with little Tommy Doyle in tow. And that's why he begins stalking them. It kind of plays like a Scooby-Doo, like Michael's just going after the evil real developer. And her meddling friends. But because Laurie goes up to the house to leave the keys, like, we can all agree that, like, those people who stopped by at 10:30 to look at the house, she saved their lives. Like, Michael was busy stalking them, so he wasn't home when those people came over at 10:30 to kill them. So I bet they're relieved. What happened to them? Who were they? Again, why was Mr. Strode selling that house? I have questions, but it does become weird, and we'll talk more about that in the 6th installment of this franchise, Curse of Michael Myers. Okie dokie, anyway. Oh, there's also a little issue with the timeline as it pertains to a death of a certain dog. I'll get back into that in a second. So, Laurie and Tommy go to the Myers house. Michael sees them, begins stalking them at school while they're walking home. Following Laurie and Annie as they're driving over to Tommy and Lindsay Wallace's house respectively, as they're both babysitting them that Halloween night. Maybe Michael also saw Lonnie Elam, who is Tommy Doyle's bully. Who knows? Who's to say? I do think it's interesting that throughout this franchise we have a lot of conversations regarding, like, fate and what is evil, and that starts specifically, the fate conversation starts in this installment, wherein in Laurie's class they're discussing Samuel and fate. And the line is, no matter what course of action Collins took, he was destined to his own fate. And how does Samuel's view of fate differ from that of Constantine's? And Laurie says that Constantine relates fate to religion, whereas Samuel's felt fate was like a natural element. Fate never changes. So that's I guess because they were talking about this in the first installment, that's just something that, like, later installments really kind of hit upon as well. This franchise is just so blood dry. Later, of course, Laurie is spending the Halloween night babysitting 8-year-old Tommy Doyle, so he likely would have been born around 1970. And Annie Brackett is across the street, one house over, dating Lindsay Wallace. Tommy is already really hyper aware and very scared, as is Laurie compared to her, very teenage friends, Linda and Annie. So I think, this is why children and virgins tend to survive, because they're paranoid and alert. Loomis gets a hold of Sheriff Brackett, and enlists him in his search for Michael Myers. And can we just say, like, Dr. Loomis was always really bad with kids. Like, he becomes increasingly worse and increasingly unhinged, but, like, Lonnie Ellum goes up to Michael Myers' house to play, like, Ding Dong Ditch or whatever, and Dr. Loomis scares the crap out of him, and he gets off on it. Like, he is in hysterics compared to every other moment of these films that he's in. Yeah, so, yeah, Loomis has always been bad with kids. Michael stole his sister's tombstone, which is very strange. Like, this man has always been so extra. And the gravekeeper tells the story of Charlie Bowles, who 15 years ago in Russellville killed his family. So 15 years ago would also have been in 1963. So 1963 in Illinois was not a good year to be in a family because men and boys just be killing their families that year. Crazy. So later, Annie, boyfriend Paul, gets out of being grounded, so she tries to go over to his house, and she drops Lindsay Wallace off at Tommy Doyle's house to also be babysat by Laurie. The old Girl Scout comes through again. Meanwhile, Linda Vanderklok and Bob Sims go over to Lindsay Wallace's house to meet up with Annie, but unfortunately, she's already been strangled and killed by Michael at this time, and they just decide to drink beer and have sex in the Wallace's empty house, because I guess that makes sense, or something. And then Bob gets stabbed, and then Linda gets strangled. I do think Michael definitely is better at strangling than stabbing people, and we can see that throughout the rest of the film, the third act, when he's trying to kill Laurie. He keeps missing her when he tries to stab her, but when he strangles her, I think it's because of the mask. Either that or Michael Myers is suffering from a bad case of stormtrooper syndrome. If you think about it, Michael was pretty playful. Like, he really messed around with his victims. I mean, think about him coming upstairs to talk to Linda under a sheet as Bob's ghost. And later on in 5, Revenge of Michael Myers, when he picks up one of the girls and pretends to be her boyfriend, Mikey. Yeah, he was always kind of messing around, and you see that a little bit throughout the series. Also, you know, he kind of like played with his victims and in how he murdered them. You know, you have like the infamous head tilt after he killed Bob. I really have no explanation for that other than I guess it makes good cinema. Eventually, after being attacked, or after finding her friends and then being confronted and attacked by Michael Myers, Laurie is able to get Tommy and Lindsay to safety and is fighting Michael as best she can. She stabs him in the neck with a knitting needle. She stabs him in the eye with a metal coat hanger thingy. She stabs him. She eventually is being strangled by Michael when Dr. Loomis sees Tommy and Lindsay running down the street and then goes into the house and is able to shoot Michael Myers 6 times when Michael then falls out of a second-story window to the ground. And then the camera cuts and shows that he's not there, and then it pans, and I think in a really great way, to all these shots I think they just had left over from setup of just empty moments, empty rooms, the outside, no one around. It's very ominous. And then in a moment of trauma, Laurie asks, was it the boogeyman? And Dr. Loomis replies, as a matter of fact, it was. I do have like so many questions. I have a funny thing. Well, so you know in Back to the Future 3 when Marty is revealed to be wearing that bulletproof vest, I always thought it'd be funny that if under the Phelps like jumpsuit that Michael was wearing a bulletproof vest and that's why he always survived getting shot. Although that wouldn't explain how he survives getting stabbed and shot in the eyes, but I got nothing. I guess Michael Myers is Superman. He can just get shot in the eye. It's fine. Like questions like what happened to Annie's boyfriend Paul? What happened to Ben Tramer and his drinking buddy Mike Godfrey? Obviously we find out later what happens to Ben Tramer, but what of Mike Godfrey? What of them? What of these boys? You know, we do have quite a few people surviving this movie. Laurie Strode, Tommy Doyle, Lindsay Wallace, Dr. Sam Loomis, Sheriff Brackett. You know, lots of survivors. They actually didn't kill that many people. I'll get to that in a second. But there is a timing question. I think is interesting because we know Michael Myers kills the Wallace family dog, Lester, and then Dr. Loomis assumes that he killed a stray dog that was found in the Myers house. However, it's specifically stated that the dog was warm. And this scene is right before, or right after rather, the scene is right after we see Michael following Annie and Laurie around while they're driving to the Doyle and Wallace residence to babysit. So did he have time to go home between following them to get home, kill the dog, maybe eat the dog? I don't know, Loomis was being literal or metaphorical with the he got hungry line, and then go back to following the girls? Like, I don't know if he had time to do that. I'm not sure. I mean, the implication is there. I think the movie wants us, I count it as a kill, but I wonder, should I? Is he innocent of the stray dog murder? I mean, as it pertains to the kill count, we obviously have 1963, he has 1 female victim, Judith. In 1968, he has 2 male kills, the Phelps truck driver and Bob Sims, and 2 female kills, Annie and Linda, for a total of 5 kills in the first Halloween film, plus 2 doggy kills. Likely the stray, definitely Lester. Poor Lester. This movie is the father of the modern slasher. It set up what other movies would rip off to filth and would cement the rules and the final girl trope. It's one of the most successful independent films ever. It launched a slew of slashers in the late 70s and early 80s, and just like so many movies. It's a simple plot with a phenomenal execution. And oh my god, what a remarkable John Carpenter score. Like, this movie gave us John Carpenter, and for that I shall ever be very, very grateful. There is an issue with Michael Myers being an escaped patient from a psychiatric ward who goes on a killing spree. It's ripped off quite a lot, and I think that's a very unfortunate view of mental illness, which in 1978 people probably wouldn't have thought twice about, but in 2022 I really think it does warrant a review, and I do think we need to stop kind of doing that. And I've really pulled away from watching movies like that, particularly ones that come out recently, because I do think it is a very negative view of mental health that it creates a lot of stigma regarding mental illness that doesn't need to be there, as most people are only a danger to themselves, not to others. And I think that's something we really need to be more mindful of. And I also do think it's interesting that this movie, the horror came to these people's houses, these homes. It subverted the safe place of home. It wasn't kids who were going out and going camping or going, like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They weren't going out and finding the scary thing. The scary thing was coming to them, and that's truly terrifying. So this movie does hit on things that are nightmare fuel. And for that, it's got one of the longest spanning franchises really ever, especially for horror films. It's impressive. Let's continue. Halloween 2, more of the night he came home. This film was released in 1981. However, it still takes place the same night as the previous film, 1978. It was written by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill once again, but this time it was directed by Rick Rosenthal, as John Carpenter really did not have any intention of making a sequel or anything for these films. It was supposed to be a once-off, but because of, the financial earnings, of course they wanted sequels. Studio wanted sequels. So, sequels they got. And then some. Halloween 2 picks up right where Halloween left off, with it still being October 31st, 1978, and Laurie is being taken to Haddonfield Memorial Hospital. I still maintain this question. Pamela and Morgan Strode, Laurie's adopted parents. Where are they? I mean, I know they're at a party, but what happened to them later? What is her relationship with them later? It's never explained or expanded upon, and I think it should have been. Anyways, Dr. Loomis, meanwhile, is continuing his search for Michael, who is slowly making his way to the hospital, going after Laurie. And he goes into some people's houses, he steals a knife, he murders a girl on the way, as you do. Sheriff Brackett is kind of indisposed after finding the murdered body of his daughter Annie, and so Loomis is being helped by Deputy Gary Hunt, who I always headcanoned that Gary Hunt was Judith's boyfriend back in '63 that we saw at the opening of the first Halloween, because he would have been 16 when that happened, just making him, only a few months to a year older than Judith. So I think timeline-wise, that works out really well, and I just kind of like that tie-in. I think it would be really interesting to see like how that would have affected him over the years. Also, Gary Hunt and Dr. Loomis totally killed Ben Tramer. His death is completely on them. Justice for Ben Tramer. Michael makes a pit stop in a classroom, and he kind of stabs a picture of a family, specifically the sister, and then he writes Samhain or Samhain in blood on the chalkboard. Again, our boy's dramatic. Marion Chambers, the nurse from the first movie, comes to get Dr. Loomis by order of the mayor, and she explains to Loomis that Laurie was actually adopted by the Strode family, and she is actually biologically Michael Myers' sister. Plot twist. And this set up Michael's motivation for most of the following sequels. So we know in the first movie tagline, "The night he came home," and we can see throughout these films that those two things are basically what Michael's always motivated by: to go home to his house at 45 Lambkin Lane, and or to kill his family. Sometimes to kill his family specifically when they're 17 years old. People criticize Curse, but I feel like H2O is more ridiculous. I'll get into that. Anyway, so Dr. Loomis demands to be taken to the hospital to see Laurie. Not so coincidentally, Michael's already there, murdering lots and lots of people. Again, Dr. Loomis just in time to save Laurie. Laurie's always getting saved by Loomis. A little ridiculous, but whatever. It's fine. Don't let her save herself. They end up blowing Michael up, and Loomis kind of blows himself up. It's after shooting him in the eyes and a few times. Michael got shot so many times in 1978. Like, he had a bad Halloween. The survivors of the film are Laurie Strode, once again, the ambulance guy, Jimmy, and Nurse Marion. And I think we're supposed to presume, however it was retconned, that Dr. Loomis and Michael died. I mean, again, it was retconned, but the presumption was there for the ending of this film anyway. Our kill count for 1978 continued. Michael killed 4 men and 5 women. And then we have the one kill that was not done by Michael Myers himself, Ben Tramer. Once again, justice for Ben Tramer. A brief aside for the anthology standalone that is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. It came out in 1982 and was written and directed by Tommy Lee Wallace. It does not have anything to do with anything that happens in the rest of the franchise. I do have a fun headcanon for it, which is, I think it would have been funny if Michael Myers' mask had the Stonehenge chip in it, and that he was the OG experiment to see what would happen with the kids that went wrong, and he ended up just killing people. But yeah, it really doesn't have much to do with anything else. So now I'm going to move it along back to the actual Michael Myers of it all and talk about the Thorn Trilogy, aka the Loomis timeline, which spans a total of 5 movies: Halloween, Halloween 2, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, and Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. 4, 5, and 6 take place from 1988 to 1995, and we focus on Laurie Strode's daughter, Jamie Lloyd, as Laurie has died off screen. These, I don't know, I love them. And this is my favorite timeline. It has, I guess, mixed, people have mixed feelings about it. So Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, called that because they wanted to ensure that people knew Michael Myers was in the movie. It came out in 1988, so 6 years after the kind of failure of Season of the Witch. Its tagline is, 10 years ago, he changed the face of Halloween. Now he's back. It was written by Alan B. McCroy and directed by Dwight H. Little. I don't know who they are. All right, moving on. So, 10 years after the night he came home, Michael Myers returns to Haddonfield after breaking free during a transport between institutions. Apparently, being comatose doesn't have any negative physical consequences for the boogeyman. The Thorn Trilogy does get into the supernatural side of things, so we do see I'm a little more forgiving. My suspension of disbelief is more knowing that there's a supernatural explanation for things. I'll get more into that later. Okay, so now he's continuing his murder spree that was set up in Halloween 1 and 2, going after his niece, Laurie's daughter, 8-year-old Jamie Lloyd. So she was likely born in 1980. So Laurie and her husband died in a car accident, presumably around November of 1989, as it was 11 months prior to October. So, they left her right before Thanksgiving. That's so sad. And little Jamie Lloyd is adopted by the Carruthers family, which gives her the stepsister of Rachel, who was likely born in 1971. I always kind of headcanon, and I think a lot of people do, that Jamie's father is the ambulance driver from Halloween 2, Jimmy. Anyway, we still see once again that Michael is motivated to kill his family. I have a question though. So Michael broke into a store and he stole a mask. That's the same mask that he had in the first 2 films. Why is this mask still being manufactured? Like, think about it. Like, this mask was used in a grisly homicide wherein so many people were murdered in 1978. Why would they continue to make this mask? And more to the point, why would Haddonfield have any stores that carried that mask? I think the mask manufacturers are the true villains of this story. Maybe Halloween 3 Season of the Witch was more important to the franchise than I originally thought. It is canon. Okay, so moving beyond that, Lindsay Walsh does appear and gives Rachel and Jamie a ride to Vincent's so she can get a costume. And at that store, we actually do see the actor who originally portrayed Tommy Doyle in the background. I do kind of wish that they had been bigger characters in the story. I like to get more of a sense of the town and the population. I think that would have been interesting. And we kind of do see that a little bit later, but not in the way that I want it. Blumhouse. Anyways, Michael is stalking Jamie and he's killing a bunch of her stepsister Rachel's friends and maybe boyfriend and maybe her boyfriend's girlfriend, the daughter of the sheriff. Michael really does kill a lot of sheriff's daughters. It's not good to be a sheriff in Haddonfield. The townspeople come together and create a mob and go after Michael. Unfortunately, they do accidentally kill the wrong guy, Ted Hollister. I don't know why anyone would pretend or dress up like Michael Myers in Haddonfield. I do think that's some very bad taste. So I kind of feel like Ted Hollister, it's a little bit your fault. I do blame the mob. I don't want to victim shame, but it is also a little your fault. Michael gets shot and run over, and I think the state troopers throw grenades at him, and he ends up falling down into this river and washing away until the next movie. And for survivors, we have Sheriff Meekers, Dr. Loomis, Jamie, Mr. and Mr. Carruthers, and Rachel. A lot of survivors in this film. However, we do have a pretty substantial kill count. 1988, 15 Michael Myers kills. 10 men, 3 women, 2 people of unknown gender, 1 dog, rest in peace Sunday, and the mob does kill Ted Hollister. Okay, that brings us to Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, which came out 1 year after Returns, 1989, and the tagline is, "The citizens of Haddonfield are about to endure the revenge of Michael Myers. What he has to revenge, I don't know. It should be called The Revenge of Haddonfield," but whatever. I can't pronounce most of these people's names, so I'm just gonna type them below as it pertains to who wrote and directed it. So again, Revenge takes place 1 year after Returns, and we are continuing with Jamie Lloyd's, Laurie's daughter's, story. At the end of Return, Jamie stabs her stepmother, Darlene Carruthers, and an ode to Michael. She's even dressed like a clown, like he was in the first film in 1963. And they kind of set it up like Jamie was going to take over for Michael. They're going to do that a lot in this franchise. A lot. And no one ever does. Anyway, so in this one, they decide to retcon that, and Jamie is just sent to Haddonfield's Children's Clinic, and she is just a very traumatized little girl who's gone nonverbal, and she has a psychic link to her Uncle Michael. Because cult? I don't know. It's very similar to like Friday the 13th New Blood or A Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Master. I don't know what it was in the water where they just kept deciding to do that, but that was just a real popular thing at the time. Anyway, Dr. Loomis has taken a position at the Children's Hospital to watch over her because that isn't obsessive or weird and there's no kind of ethical issues. Like I said, he was always real weird with kids, and he's just becoming increasingly more unhinged. This movie is peak Loomis unhinged. Michael has been in a coma for the past year. Again, boy is just always going comatose. Don't know what it is about evil just like going in like the butterfly cocoon and waking up when they're ready to kill people on Halloween, but that's what he do. I guess he was being looked over by like a homeless man for the past year, kind of by the river where he washed up from the last film. There's a cut scene where originally this homeless man was supposed to be Dr. Death, and he gave Michael Myers the tattoo of the thorn, which he has in this film for the first time. So I don't know why that was cut. It's actually kind of important. And in this film, we do kind of see the man in black walking around, who is this mysterious figure who we will get reveal for the next film, because I don't think they had any ideas. So, okay. Really doing the most with nothing. Yeah. Just really gotta say, why is that mask still being manufactured? It doesn't matter, but it does. Anyway. Jamie's stepsister, Rachel, and all of her friends are killed by Michael, because that's what he do. And Dr. Loomis uses Jamie as bait to lure Michael in to kill him at his house, which they clearly didn't use the same house. I don't know the point. I don't understand like why they clearly are using, I mean, just a ridiculously different house. Like no one would think that's the same place. It's really crazy. And then Dr. Loomis like tranquilizes Michael and he catches them in this like metal net and he starts to beat him with a 2x4 and then he has a stroke. It's wild. And then now he's sedated, so the police are able to arrest Michael and take him to the police station, and they leave his mask on. I don't know what's happening. This movie just went off the rails. But that's what it is. And then the man in black shows up, and he kills 7 deputies and Sheriff Meekers. That's my count. That might be off. And abducts Jamie and Michael. All right, that's a whole thing that happens. I do wish that Rachel hadn't died at the beginning of the film. I don't understand why Tina is even a character. I think Tina should have been Lindsay Wallace, and we should have continued on with their friendship, and we would have seen that from the previous film. Jamie already had a connection and knew her, so she's not just a random new character. I just think that would have made so much more sense. Again, I don't like that Rachel died. It was just, I mean, she could have died at the end. I think that would have been more impactful. Just personally. Yeah. People who survive, Michael survived, Jamie survived, Dr. Loomis survived though he did have a stroke, and the man in black are our survivors. Our kill count as of 1989. Michael had 12 kills in this movie, 8 men, 4 women, 1 dog. The dog isn't counted with people kills. Max, rest in peace, Max. You were a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful boy. And then the man in black had 8 kills. Yes. Yes. Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. 6 times the terror, 6 times the fear, 6 times the thrills. That is a terrible tagline. It's released in 1995. It's written by my cinematic arch rival, Daniel Ferrandis, who I just despise as a human being, and it's directed by Joe Chappelle. There is a theatrical cut and a producer's cut, most people favoring the producer's cut, which has now been released officially, but for a long time you could really only find it online, which is how I originally watched it. I'm just kind of talking about the film in general, looking at both cuts, to be honest. Yeah. So, Curse of Michael Myers is kind of the most out there of all of these films. They took a really big swing. I personally like it, though. A lot of people don't. In terms of the cuts, a lot of it is left kind of ambiguous because while Donald Pleasence did return to reprise his role of Dr. Loomis, he did pass away before they were able to do reshoots, so that they weren't necessarily able to like finish the film in a way that wasn't open to interpretation because of that. Further, on a happy note, this movie does introduce Paul Rudd, although I think this film was shot first. Clueless was released first, but whichever, those are Paul Rudd's first two movies, and I think that's very fun. Oh my god, this movie. Okay, Enter the Cult of the Thorn. I like the Cult of the Thorn, I'm not gonna lie. I'm very biased towards it. I want to talk about the opening though. So depending on which cut you watch, either Dr. Loomis or Paul Rudd as Tommy Doyle has an opening narration. And specifically, here's the narration. I'm just going to type it out. I want to point out, you can't control evil. You can lock it up, burn it, and bury it, and pray that it dies, but it never will. It just rests a while. So I mentioned in the first movie that they talk about fate a lot. And that does come up throughout the franchise, but also this idea of like what evil is as an entity comes up quite a bit. And this line is something that's not going to be repeated, but is going to be something that comes up particularly in Halloween Ends that I want to mention later on. So I just wanted to bring attention to that now. So 6 years after the revenge of Michael Myers, this Halloween starts off with a 15-year-old Jamie giving birth. Kind of a Rosemary's Baby situation as to who the father is. Generally speaking, it is implied that the father is, in fact, her uncle, Michael Myers. Either way, she gives birth to a baby boy who will eventually be named Stephen. She has been missing and held captive for these past 6 years under Smith Grove Sanitarium by an evil cult known as the Cult of the Thorn, led by the Man in Black himself, who is revealed to be none other than Dr. Wynn, who is this guy in the first movie. What? Okay. So Jamie is able to get her son to safety before, depending on which cut you watch, she's either murdered by Michael or later she is murdered by Dr. Wynn. Either way, she does die. The Michael ends up getting released from Smith's Grove Sanitarium, where technically he's been held, but it's not like in a legal way. He's just been in he's been like the A-team. Well, instead of the LA Underground, he's in the Smith Grove Underground, waiting to kill his family. I have no idea what's happening in this movie. But it goes back to his original motive where he just kind of wants to go to his old house, 45 Lambkin Lane, you know? He just wants to go home. And there's people living in his home. What the fuck? Poor boy. So anyway, Dr. Loomis is once again trying to put an end to Michael Myers, although this time he has some help. Yeah. I don't really understand what's happening with the whole... I don't know what Dr. Wynn wanted from Dr. Loomis. Like, it seems like he wants him to take over for him as the Man in Black, but I don't know why he would think that Loomis would be into that. It's a little convoluted. I never really figured it out. But anyway, we have the return of the character Tommy Doyle, this time played by Paul Rudd. He's about 25 years old in this movie, and he lives across the street from the Myers house in Mrs. Blankenship's boarding house. And he's just like, he's a bit of a traumatized person. He's very obsessed with Michael Myers. And he finds Jamie's baby and names him Stephen and takes him home. Like you do. Like you do. In two ways. Yeah, so Tommy is actually kind of set up to like take over the role that Dr. Loomis has, and I do think that that would have been interesting, and I think it's unfortunate that they never continued on with this. In the producer's cut, they go on this whole thing about like runes and druids. I'll just put up what Tommy was babbling about. It's a whole thing. So then we get to the Strode family. So this would be, okay, so Laurie Strode was adopted by Morgan and Pamela Strode. So this is Morgan's brother, John Strode, and his wife Deborah, and they live in the Myers house now with their daughter Kara, her son Danny and their son Tim. So Kara, Tim, Danny, John, and Deborah. John and Deborah obviously owe to John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, the original creators of Halloween. There's a whole, I got so many questions. Why are they living in the Myers house? Like, what happened? Well, first and foremost, what happened to Morgan and Pamela Strode? I still don't know what happened to Morgan and Pamela Strode after the events of Halloween in 1978. Like, what have they been up to? Clearly, they still own and operate Strode Realty, and it seems like John also works at Strode Realty with his brother. So he would have definitely have been like part of like selling the Myers house. So like, why did he move in with his family? And then the implication that like his son Tim doesn't really know that much about Michael Myers, or like that his house was the Myers house and his wife clearly didn't know. Like, if John works in Haddonfield as with Strode Realty, wouldn't his family have also lived there? Or at bare minimum, wouldn't they have ever visited Aunt Pamela and Uncle Morgan? Like, I feel like they should definitely be more aware of like the town of Haddonfield and like the history of the Myers. I don't know, it just did not make sense to me, like why they wouldn't be more aware. And like, because it's like, now you know Laurie's connection to Michael, why would you still be selling the Myers house, especially to your own family or to yourself? Like, it's just lots of questions. And apparently there's like a headcanon that John Strode is Danny Strode's father, which is like pretty inappropriate because that means he was abusing his daughter. But this is actually like a well-known like popular headcanon. But I think that's kind of interesting because we have the same relationship kind of as it pertains to like Jamie and Michael being the parents of Stephen. So I do think that is, I think it holds validity just because we already see this, and also because Daniel Francis wrote it, and really don't like that guy in two ways. Lots of questions. All right, so Danny is 6 years old in this movie, so he was likely born in 1989. The last time we had a murder spree by Michael. Interesting. Anyway, he's having these creepy nightmares, and he's being talked to by the man in black, who's like telling him to kill. So it's set up that Danny's supposed to be the next like Michael Myers. He's supposed to be the next kid to have the thorn symbol and kill his family. They really do try to have someone take over for Michael all the time, and it never happens. Alright, so Michael goes home. He starts killing the Strode family. Kara comes home to meet Tommy, who's taking care of Danny and Steven, and they go off together, and then they get abducted by the cult of the Thorn, and they end up in the Smith Grove Sanitarium underground, you know, as you do. Meanwhile, I do think it's cool that we see how Michael Myers' actions have affected the town of Haddonfield, and that they've banned Halloween celebrations. I think that's really interesting, and I think that's kind of a cool thing to explore. Blumhouse did it as well, but I do think that Curse did it better. I'll talk about the Blumhouse. I'll get to it. I just don't want to. We also have this like shock jockey, Barry Sims. I wonder if there's any relation to Bob Sims. Anyway, he's kind of exploiting the tragedy that have happened in the tragedies that have happened in Haddonfield, and this idea is going to be used a lot in later films, but this is kind of the first one that did it. And yeah, so then we have like the showdown at the Smith Grove Sanitarium, depending on which cut you watch. The ending is ambiguous in both. So for survivors, Kara, Tommy, Danny, and Steven leave together, never to be seen again. They're out of the franchise. Dr. Loomis goes back into the building, and then we kind of hear him screaming, and we're not really sure what happens. You know, either he got the symbol of the thorn or he's killed. We don't really know. What happened to Michael? We don't really know. You can kind of pick it up in Chaos Comics if you can find a copy. Hard to say. that's the end of, this timeline, and it is left very ambiguous. So anyway, kill count for 1995. Michael Myers has 16 kills. 6 men, 5 women, 5, I think 5 people, gender unknown. And we don't know if Dr. Loomis died. I did give the Jamie kill to Michael, although it might have been Dr. Wynn's. I'm calling it at 16. It was difficult to say, though. So it's an approximation this time. This is yeah. Thus concludes the Thorn Trilogy. I do hope that it gets expanded upon, because I do think that I think it was interesting, and I think there's still a lot of love for at least the 4th film. And I think retroactively, people are coming around more to the 6th film. But either way, I mean, you could bring Paul Rudd back, Who's going to say no to a Paul Rudd? Who? Who among us? I'm on movie 7 and I've ran out of coffee. Fuck. The Laurie Sequels, or the H2O timeline, as I call it. I really thought it was called up until recently. This timeline includes Halloween, Halloween 2, Halloween H2O, and Halloween Résurrection, which Halloween H2O picks up 1998 and goes to Halloween Résurrection, which is in 2002. This one picks up retcons the franchise. So once again, we have a soft reboot. This time, not quite as soft as the 1988 reboot, but not quite as hard of a reboot as the Blumhouse one will be. And we are picking up with Laurie Strode, alive and well, living in California. So let's get to that. Halloween H2O, 20 years later. It's going to be one hell of a family reunion, which came out in August of 1998 and was written by a few people. Frank Zappia and Matt Greenberg, however, uncredited. Kevin Williamson, and you can really feel like the Scream vibes. You can feel the Kevin Williamson in this. And it was directed by Steve Miner, who's done quite a few horror movies that I really like. Sorry. Okay, so Halloween H2O disregards the Thorn timeline and only takes Halloween 1 and 2 into consideration. Laurie Strode faked her death sometime after 1978 and went into the witness protection program, likely, and has assumed the identity of Carrie Tate. There is a headcanon that Laurie Strode is Elizabeth Shuley in The Fog, and that's just her on the run. And there's a fan theory that Tom Atkins' character, Nick Castle, is John's father, which I think is kind of fun. Take it or leave it, just kind of an interesting, way to watch the franchise. Either way, I do have a question. What happened to Morgan and Pamela Strode? Someone tell me. Anyway. Laurie, aka Carrie Tate, is now a 37-year-old working as the headmistress / English teacher at Hillcrest Academy in Northern California, and making this the first Halloween to take place outside of Haddonfield, Illinois. Leaving Illinois isn't going to stop our boy Michael. This film says that Michael is motivated to kill his family when they're 17. They even go so far as to retcon Judith's age as not to have been murdered when she was 15, but at 17. So Michael specifically wants to kill his family when they're 17 years old. And he doesn't care about going home, I guess, now. Okay. Maybe it is a hard reboot. So Laurie / Carrie lives with her 17-year-old son, John, who was born in August of 1981. And she's traumatized by the events that have taken place in her life. And she's doing her best. She's dating guidance counselor Will Brennan. And she's just struggling to deal with her shit. And she's a bit of an alcoholic. But, she's working. She's doing her best with her son. She's still living her life. I really hate the Blumhouse timeline. During class, there's a conversation regarding Frankenstein, and I gotta say, we interpreted Frankenstein very differently. Again, we're having this conversation about fate for this particular instance. You know, it was Victor's fate to face his monster, the wretch. And, you know, it was Elizabeth's death is partially his fault because he was paralyzed by fear and he was not confronting his monster and he was not confronting his fate. And so I guess we're getting very victim shamey here. Whatever. Anyway, we do have some fun like cameos. For instance, like Jamie Lee Curtis's mother, Janet Leigh, is in the movie, and she has the same car that she had in Psycho, and we have some musical cues from Psycho, which I think is fun. Scream Queen Dynasty. So it's the 20th anniversary of the night he came home, and now 41-year-old Michael Myers breaks into Dr. Loomis's house, which for some reason Nurse Marion Chambers lives there now, and he steals the file on Laurie, which I'm not sure what he was even looking for, or how he knew that Loomis lived there, or why Nurse Chambers now lives there, or why that file would be in the house. There's lots of questions. They don't give any answers. This is a very short movie. It's very to the point. They kind of didn't care about the setup. So it's I feel like it's not a very good setup because it just leaves more questions than it has answers. Anyway, I guess he finds out that he has a 17-year-old nephew, John, in California. I don't know why that would even be in the file. Like, that would be redacted. I'm very confused. Anyway, so Michael somehow gets from Illinois to California in 2 days, which I've made that drive before. Bet you're not getting there in 2 days, but all right. He did that. I just want to know where he got a mask this time. Like, who's still manufacturing the mask? Where did he get the mask? The mask company, they're the true bad guys of this franchise. I'm calling it. It's them. They're the evil ones. Like, why did he choose now to go look for the file? You know, it's just a lot of questions. We'll move on. So Laurie and Michael are face to face again, and this time Laurie is taking control of her narrative and she's confronting her fate. She sends John and his girlfriend Molly away after a bunch of their friends are killed, and her boyfriend Will Brennan is killed. I do like the bringing back the do as I say now, which is what she told Michael and Lindsay when they didn't want to run away from the danger either. So anyway, she sends the two kids away, and she fights Michael, and I don't even know what to say to this. He gets stabbed multiple times. He falls from a balcony, and then he's taken by some ambulance people, and I guess we see Laurie steal the ambulance and drive away and then decapitate Michael. And then that gets retconned. Lord have mercy. So the survivors of the film obviously are Laurie, John, Molly, and the security guard, Ronnie, played by LL Cool J. They retcon in the next film that Michael also survived and that he set up one of the ambulance drivers to be wearing his mask so that Laurie will decapitate him. I guess because he knew that she was going to freak out and attack him? I don't know. I have questions. That didn't make sense either. But alright. I do think that this movie still could have been part of the Thorn franchise. They just needed to make Jamie canon. And if you say, well, she abandoned one child and kept the other, first and foremost, realistically, that does actually happen a lot. But you could just say that John was also given up for adoption, but after the death of Jamie, she keeps an eye on John so that when Michael shows up and goes after John, she's nearby, and therefore she is able to confront Michael because she stayed close to John because she regretted what happened to Jamie. There you go. I fucking fixed it. They could still all be canon. Okay, so 1998 kill count. Michael has 6 kills, 4 men, 2 women, and we have 1 kill that was not Michael's. Laurie kills the Michael Myers imposter, who should have been Michael Myers. Anyway, Halloween Resurrection, the 8th installment of the franchise. Whoo boy. Evil finds its way home. Okay, motivation. Michael wants to go home. He doesn't care about his family anymore. Well, he does. He, at the beginning, spoilers, opens 2001 in an institution. Laurie has been there for the past 3 years, and Michael comes and kills her, even though she was trying to set it up that she would kill him. He gets the advantage and kills her, and she kisses him and says, "See you in hell." That would have been fun. Michael and Laurie in hell still duking it out. I'd watch. Anyway, this is a lot of people's least favorite movie of the franchise. It was directed by Rick Rosenthal, who had also directed Halloween 2. It's an unfortunate one, this one. I don't know what they were thinking. So after killing Laurie, Michael goes back home to 45 Lincoln Lane. Not sure why the house wasn't demolished. Realistically, I feel like that house would be demolished and maybe a new house would be put up in its place. That often happens in real life when really bad things have happened. They usually tear down the house or the building. That's, yeah. So anyway, I guess that didn't happen. And we have a now 45-year-old Michael who's just like dead. Now that like his life's dedication to murdering his sisters is completed, he just wants to go home and rest. I guess he doesn't care about John or his parents. What happened to them? They still alive? Technically, no. I think it's in one of the novelizations. It says that they died in a car accident in 1965, but I don't know if that's canon or not. Anyway, so he goes home. Oh my god. Cut to 2002, and the whole film is fucking pointless. There's a reality TV show headed by Busta Rhymes. I'm not looking up what his character's name is. He's Busta Rhymes. And they're kind of exploiting the whole Michael's as a serial killer thing, and they're going to his home and they're getting people in like a reality TV show to spend the night at his house. Oh boy. Talk about in bad taste. It's very exploitative. It's kind of like that disc jockey Barry Sims in Curse, and we're going to see this happen again in the Blumhouse Trilogy of people trying to like take advantage and make money off of the murders. It's really inappropriate, and unfortunately it does happen in real life too, but it's just really gross, and I hate all of it. There is one good death scene wherein Michael kills like the camera guy Charlie in a death scene that is a recreation of a scene from the film Peeping Tom, and I thought that was pretty cool, but that was really about the only good thing I have to say about this movie. Busta Rhymes does kick Michael Myers into this wire and electrocutes him and says, "Trick or treat, motherfucker." So that happens. Anyway, this film ended this timeline because I don't think people really like it. It was not good. It just fucking happened. It was very of its time. I don't think anyone cares about these characters. I certainly don't. There were survivors from the film. We never see them again because this ended this era of the franchise. And Michaels did survive though, and he got some kills. 2001, he got 1 kill. Laurie. In 2002, he got 9 kills, being 6 men and 3 women, and thus concluded that timeline. Woof. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and skip to the Blumhouse Trilogy, which spans Halloween, the 1978 film, Halloween, the 2018 film, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends. So we're going more of a hard reboot, and we're disregarding every single sequel after the original film. Halloween and Halloween Kills take place in 2018, and Halloween Ends takes place in 2022, so the year I'm making this. And we once again have revived Laurie Strode, and we're giving her another family. Again. Oh my god. So Halloween 2018, Face Your Fate. Again, talking about fate. It was released in 2018. It was written by David Gordon Green and Danny McBride, the dudes who made Pineapple Express. And it was directed by David Gordon Green. Thus begins the Blumhouse reboot, for fucking sakes. Yeah, so they just didn't want Laurie and Michael to be siblings, which is kind of what John Carpenter originally had inspired. So I guess that's cool. But and they did bring back John Carpenter to do the music, and I do say that's the best part of these films. They also wanted Michael to be a mortal man, which, if I'm being honest, if you're gonna have someone survive everything that he did and be, let's just be rude about it, as old as he is, I do think having Michael Myers be not just a mortal man, but a supernatural entity does make more sense and does allow for a larger suspension of disbelief. Every other main franchise has characters who are supernatural, except for the Scream franchise, because the Scream killers die, Ghostface dies every single installment, so you can just start over. We're not following the killer, we're following the survivor. Which in every other franchise, we're following the killer. Now, I do think that that's not positive. Like, that's a very negative thing. We shouldn't be following the killer. We should be following the survivor, the Sidney Prescott of it all. But, whatever, we got what we got. All right, moving on. So, the Laurie and Michael connection in this film is really forced, and I don't like it. It honestly just made more sense for them to be siblings and have some kind of connection. And the way they had her involved is really ridiculous and over the top, and I just fucking hate it. Also, with taking out all of the other sequels except for one, there is a point in that, a guy killed like 5 people 40 years ago. I'm not saying that that's not bad and that's not traumatizing, but like, when you have mass murderers like you do today, it is kind of like what Michael did in 1978 for the time was bad, but comparatively, we see so much worse literally every single day now. So I do think it would make sense to kind of bring the nope, because it's just how this whole trilogy was written is so up its own ass in terms of importance. And I feel like they think they're saying something, but how I interpret what they're saying is so fucking negative and irresponsible and reprehensible. I'm getting ahead of myself and angry, so I'm gonna stop. What is this movie about? Okay, so 40 years after the night he came home in 1978, Laurie Strode is now a traumatized 57-year-old who is living like the ultimate prepper life. And to be honest, we saw trauma dealt with so much better in H2O. I think how they dealt with trauma in this movie is literally so fucking offensive and rude. It's disgusting. Again, I'm getting mad. I really hate this fucking movie. Like, H2O, she still was a human being living her life. She was dating, she was raising her child, she had a job. Yeah, she was an alcoholic, she was in pain, but she'd also dealt with a lot more in that film. And again, not to say that, like, she had a lot more reason to be afraid. In this movie, yes, what she dealt with was horrible. But to like completely shut down and be this person who's not capable of fucking going on your day-by-day life based on the first events of Halloween is absolutely ridiculous. And it's difficult, no matter what kind of trauma you suffer. I'm just using that one as an example. But like, no matter what trauma you suffer, it's like this weight. And every day that weight gets a little lighter, hopefully. But to have someone's life completely shut down, and I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but honestly, when we've seen it in this franchise by this actor already done in a much more believable and less fucking infantilizing way, it just really pisses me off. Really. It is a terrible portrayal of trauma. And it unintentionally really kind of endorses child abuse by showing Laurie was right and that the trauma that she put on her own child who was taken away from her custody-wise was okay because she was right at the end and Michael was coming back. Ridiculous. Disgusting. Also, she's not practicing gun safety, so those people were right to take poor little Karen away from her. Karen is her daughter, by the way. I forgot to mention that. I got sidetracked by anger. She has a daughter, Karen, and a granddaughter, Allison. Okay, back to plot. So Michael is this now 61-year-old guy who's been institutionalized for like 40 years and apparently is still super buff. It doesn't, all right. And he has this, evil obsessed Dr. Sartain who's basically Dr. Wynn all over again, and these weird podcasters who are basically Barry Sims all over again and Buster Rhymes all over again. They're rehashing things. They're just doing it in a way that makes less sense. God, I fucking hate this movie. Anyway, so Laurie's daughter Karen was probably born around 1980, 1981. She's married to Ray Nielsen. They have a 17-year-old daughter, Allison, who was probably born around 2001. And Michael Myers escapes and starts killing people. Kind of what he do. Blah, blah, blah. There's a headcanon that Deputy Frank Hawkins is Karen's father. I like that headcanon. That is my reality. No one can tell me I'm wrong. Yeah. Stuff happens in the movie. It's fucking boring. I don't like it. In the end, Laurie lures Michael to this death trap that is her house, and then she shoots off 2 of his fingers and locks him in the basement and sets the basement on fire, kind of like in Halloween 2 all over again, but whatever. The survivors of this film include Laurie, her daughter Karen, her granddaughter Allison. It's left to believe that Deputy Hawkins is dead, but we do find out in the next film he is actually alive, and Cameron, who is Allison's boyfriend. The kill count for this film is actually kind of one of the higher ones. Michael killed about 17 people, 13 men, and 4 women. So pretty high kill counts. I hate this movie. So the first Blumhouse film made a shit ton of money. I think I looked it up. It made about $255 million in theaters, so they decided to make it a trilogy, which was a horrible idea, but that's what they did. So we get Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, which were both simultaneously because of the pandemic released to theaters and to Peacock day and date. So they have a bit less in terms of their theatrical gross. And I don't really know how they made up for it on Peacock. I'm not sure, I don't really know how to measure that, to be honest. So, anyway, Halloween Kills. Evil dies tonight is a tagline. And I'm never saying that again. I never want to hear it again. This was released October 15th, 2021. It was written by David Gordon Green, Danny McBride, and Scott Teems. And once again was directed by David Gordon Green, who directed the entirety of the Blumhouse Trilogy. Kills picks up the same night in 2018. And this movie put Laurie in the hospital, almost like Halloween 2 all over again. And Résurrection, technically. And then Michael is off killing people, trying to make his way home. His motivation in this franchise is he just wants to go home and to kill people. To go home. Let him go home. Just let him go home. We have the return of Tommy Doyle and Lindsay Walsh. Lindsay Walsh is reprised by the same little girl who played her in 1978. Tommy Doyle is now played by Anthony Michael Hall. Should have got Paul Rudd. Is that what I said? We have the return of Marion Chambers. And once again, we have the formation of a mob like we did in Halloween Returns. Although in Halloween Returns, it was done so fucking much better. I'm sorry, you have people going after Michael Myers with, baseball bats. It's 2018 in Illinois. I lived in Illinois. People got guns in Illinois. So I don't know why, 30 years later, they made a less believable fucking mob, but they did. So, alright, let's watch this fucking movie. I really hated this movie. Okay, so, yeah, this movie kind of wanted to go down to basics, even though they didn't. God, this movie pisses me off. So, Michael and Laurie have no relationship, and this movie's really fucking contrived. People are just going after Michael, and I don't understand why he's so strong if he's just human. He's 61. He spent 40 years in an institution. He's not buff. Whatever. They really just need to make up their minds. My suspension of disbelief is not that high if they're telling me he's just a fucking human. The Cult of the Thorn just made more fucking sense. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Michael kills people. There we go. Meh. The mob is trying to kill him, but he kills them. He kills a lot of, groups of people, which doesn't make sense. I feel like they should have kept it more minimal and just had him killing people, person here, person there, breaking into the house and killing people. That makes more sense, and it does seem like something that they'd be able to do. But having him kill, a group of 11 firefighters is so stupid because he's just a man, right? I fucking hate these movies. The mob mistakes this guy who's another patient, Tivoli, for Michael Myers, and they ended up causing this man to kill himself. Again, it was done better when the mob killed Ted Hollister in Returns. And this movie, again, is so up its own ass in terms of, like, what it's trying to say. Like, you know, he's turned us into monsters. No, he literally didn't. That's so fucking stupid. Oh, God, I hate these movies. And it's the whole movie spinning its wheels because they can't kill Michael, obviously, because we know he has another movie. It's just so dumb. And in the end, Michael kills Laurie's daughter, Karen. The survivors include Laurie, Allison, Lindsay, and Deputy Hawkins. Michael gets... It's hard to tell how many kills he has. We know the mob killed Tivoli. We have a 1978 flashback where we learn that Hawkins killed his partner, McCabe. So we know Michael killed 11 firefighters. And he killed 9 other men and 3 women for sure. And as it pertains to the mob, I think I counted 7. Everybody seems to have a different kill count. Anywhere from 5 to 12 people in the mob. So I'm saying 30 confirmed kills. Ish. I had 31, but then one of them got retconned in the next film. So I'm going with 30 confirmed kills, but I'm very iffy on that. Okay, Halloween Ends, which came out October 2020. It was written by a lot of people. David Gordon Green was the director. He also had a hand in writing it, along with Danny McBride, Chris Bremer, Paul Brennan Logan, and some other people. This ends the Blumhouse Trilogy, and it kind of ended it by copying Friday the 13th for New Beginnings. You know, everyone's favorite Friday the 13th movie. This film opens up a year after the previous film in 2019, where we have Corey Cunningham, who I think is supposed to be 21, so he's probably born around 1998. And he is babysitting Jeremy Allen. Through a weird accident, Corey ends up causing Jeremy's death. And the town of Haddonfield blames Corey and thus kind of ruins his life. We're seen through flashbacks and through Laurie's narration, through a book that she's writing about her life, that Haddonfield has kind of become very paranoid regarding Michael Myers. Every crime or death is blamed on him, regardless of like whether or not it's likely him or not. We do learn, is living in the sewer like Pennywise. I don't even have fucking words. Alright, so the rest of the film takes place 3 years later, so it's 4 years after the previous 2 films in 2022. And Michael Myers is now a 65-year-old guy living in a sewer. And they were making fun of his age in H2O. Wow, alright. So Laurie has gone into like perfect mom mode now that her daughter is dead, and she's trying to take care of her granddaughter Allison, who is now a nurse, I guess. She got that degree fast. Corey works as a mechanic. Oh, notice the jumpsuit. I wonder what's going to happen with Corey. And his boss, Roland, I think is really nice to him and is dating his very overbearing mother. Corey is being bullied kind of by like all of Haddonfield, but specifically the Haddonfield High marching band. Boo, you're getting bullied by the marching band. That's, yeah. So it's Terry, Margot, Stacy, and Billy. And he ends up meeting Laurie through, after getting his hand cut while a confrontation with the kids. And after they puncture the kids' tires, they go to the hospital where Laurie kind of sets up Corey and Allison, who they start dating because trauma bonding, I guess. Allison, we see, is being harassed by this detective, Doug Mullaney, and I absolutely hate him. More to say on that later. The band kids attack Corey again, and they toss him over the bridge where he meets Michael Myers, who again is living in a sewer like Pennywise from It. Corey's basically Henry Bowers. Seen this movie before? Twice. They make eye contact, and I guess Corey like absorbs Michael evil or something, or like Michael passes it. I don't fucking know. I don't even fucking care. And again, we've seen this in Jamie in Returns, in Danny Strode, in Cursed, in Laurie, in H2O. Like, we've seen this happen before. And this made more fucking sense. This movie is very, nature versus nurture. Is the evil within, or is it society? Fuck you movie. I'll talk about that later, I guess. Oh, God. Retweeted to a slew of quotes such as these. We do learn that Sandra from the previous movie, part of the older couple, actually did survive kills. She's really messed up though. And her sister is confronting Laurie. A lot of people confront Laurie and kind of blame her for Michael attacking, which is stupid. It doesn't make any fucking sense. But, I mean, I guess it's fine. It's whatever. And every time she gets confronted, Laurie really shuts down and just goes away, which makes sense. Michael and Corey kill Doug together. Corey later steals Michael's masks and goes on a killing spree, which is very, very violent. And then he confronts Laurie. Well, Laurie confronts him, and they have a conversation, which is about nature versus nurture. This is what Laurie says to him. This whole movie plays like a Laurie Michael fanfic, except it's through Allison and Corey, which I don't think anyone asked for or wanted, but the fuck do I know? Michael shows up for the final showdown with Laurie, and Laurie defeats him with a little help from Allison and the townspeople, tie him to the roof of a police car, and then they take him to this auto body place and put him through like the car crusher thing, which is so disgusting and absolutely gross. And I don't mean like in terms of like body horror gross. I mean like the implication of what they're doing is vile. Like the public execution thing is fucking God, I hate it. And Laurie says evil doesn't die, it changes shape. So like, wouldn't it be better to have an enemy you know over the enemy you don't know? I'm not going to try to make sense of it. This movie's so fucking stupid. And our survivors are Allison, Laurie, and Deputy Hawkins. And then it ends with Don't Fear the Reaper playing. I'll talk about it more later, but I really just think, like, from the get-go, Doug should have been the killer, not Corey. The misogynist, inappropriate cop who's harassing Allison should have been the bad guy. Not the sad, angry boy who's bullied 20-something-year-old white male, because we have the obvious implication of what they're trying to say about that. And we don't need to show him in a forgivable light. And we don't need to say society made him bad, because you know what? If you're trying to have real-world implications and say, and go in an artistic manner to, like, express, like, what's going on in the real world, then don't say that, because that's fucking wrong. With all of the mass shootings and shit we have, don't make him the pitied good guy who's misunderstood and so he goes down a dark road. That's fucking awful, and the implications are absolutely disgusting. Don't give him an out for his violent acts. What is better is if you show a actual bad person, Detective Doug Mulaney, being a bad guy. Especially in a movie that basically cemented the final girl trope, maybe you should actually show a real bad guy, a cop. Specifically this cop. I hated the Blumhouse ones. Okay, so the Halloween Ends kill count. So Michael killed 2 people. 1 man, 1 woman. Corey killed 8 people. I do not count Corey died by suicide. I do not count that in his kill count. I think that would be very negligent to do so. We have 1 person who was killed by friendly fire, Roland, and then Michael was killed by Laurie and Allison. Those don't go into the kill count. And then we also have Jeremy dying in an accident, which I did not count as in Corey's kill count, because that was unintentional. Okay. This concludes talking about Blumhouse. I hate Blumhouse. Alright, so then we get into the Rob Zombie remakes, which came out in 2007 and 2009, respectively. I mean, of all of the big horror movie franchises, especially the ones that have been remade, these are the only ones that got a sequel, which I think is interesting. The tagline for the first one was "Evil has a destiny," so we're going back to the idea of fate. And for the second one, it was "Family is forever," so we're going back to the motivation of killing family. So the first half of the first film dives into Michael Myers' psychology and looks at the sequences of his early childhood when he's about 10 years old in the year 1990, leading up to the murder of his sister Judith, her boyfriends, and his, I guess, stepdad, Ronnie. And it's looking at this from his point of view. He kills a few other people as well. And I do like that, unlike in the Blumhouse Trilogy that's trying to blame, evil on society, which, I mean, if you want to get to like Merton Strain and anime theory, yes, most crime does exist because of the propaganda that is the American dream, and it does exist because our infrastructures and systems do exclude minorities, which makes it difficult for people to make a livelihood legitimately. However, that does not include violent crime. Violent crime is not accounted for in that, in those crime statistics. That does come from within, usually. Not always, but usually. It's pissing me off so much. Gotta move on. Okay, so Judith was 16 in this film, and Judith and Michael have a younger sister, Angel, who we know later is Laurie. Yes, so we get a peek into Dr. Loomis's relationship with the young Michael and how it kind of depleted over the years. We also get to see their mother, Deborah, and her relationship to the children, and how she was affected by the death of her daughter by her son, and she ultimately ended up taking her own life. And this is when Laurie's put up for adoption, and the records were closed and sealed thanks to Sheriff Brackett, who is played by the amazing Brad Dourif, who you know is, of course, as the voice of Chucky in the Child's Play / Chucky franchise. The second half of the first film then is basically a more up-to-date remake of the original. So it's 17 years later. We're now in 2007. Laurie is babysitting Tommy Doyle again, and her friends are ultimately murdered. I do think it makes more sense that Linda and her boyfriend Bob go to the Myers house, and that's how he finds and kills them, because that's just like an abandoned house that teenagers hang out in. I think that just kind of made more sense than Michael stalking them. He's specifically kind of stalking his sister, and he does kill her adoptive parents. I don't remember their names in this movie, which I think it's good that we get an explanation of what happened to Mr. and Mrs. Strode. Michael and Laurie have a confrontation. They both get really hurt, which kind of is sad. And yeah, Michael really just wants to go to the sanctity of home and find his little sister. People should just stop fucking with his house, you know what I mean? If everyone just left his house alone, maybe Michael wouldn't be so upset. Let the dude just sit in his house. Anyway, the survivors of the film include Michael, Dr. Loomis, Laurie, Annie, and Sheriff Brackett. The kill count, Michael has 5 kills in 1990, I think. There's a nurse where I'm not sure if she was killed or not, but I kind of came down on she was. And then we have 1 death that was not by Michael Myers' hands, being his mother who took her own life. In 2007, he has 15 kills, 11 men, 4 women, and we have 1 guard who died by friendly fire, so does not get to be accounted for him. A total kill count of 30 in the first movie. Okay, sequel starts off as a dream sequence, so I don't actually count any of those kills. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then it goes right into the rest of the movie. The dream sequence kind of is supposed to be a recreation of the original Halloween 2, where Laurie's in the hospital. And then we move away from the plot and we just get full weird with it. And I do like this movie in terms of its story. However, I just don't like movies where people scream a lot. And the girl playing Laurie, I'm completely blanking on her name, Tyler Scout, whatever, just screams out the whole movie. And it's like, I can't, it's so grating, I can't do it. Other than that, I do think the movie is good. Laurie is living with Sheriff Brackett and Annie, and they're all kind of dealing with a trauma. And not only is Laurie dealing with the trauma of what happened, she's also dealing with the trauma of learning she's actually Michael Myers' sister. She didn't know that up until now because Dr. Loomis is trying to profit off of the murders, and he's published a book about it. Once again, like Barry Simpson Curse, like Busta Rhymed in Resurrection, like those podcasters in Halloween 2018. We see this over and over again. People are trying to exploit the murder. And unfortunately, we do see that in real life. But I do think it's interesting that Linda Vanderklok's father does confront Dr. Loomis while he's at a book signing and tries to shoot him because he's so upset that nothing was really done to save his daughter, and he's just making money off of it now. And I do think, like, this whole movie is kind of like how that trauma is sitting with these people now, all of the survivors. And I do really like that, and I like when that's shown. Michael is kind of living as a homeless man and wandering around and seeing like this ghost or hallucination of his dead mother, Deborah. Okay. And Michael ends up abducting Laurie and killing a bunch of her friends. And then it culminates in Loomis, Michael, and Laurie in a shack, all kind of confronting each other. And Laurie's having a breakdown. I don't know what Michael's doing. And Dr. Loomis is like, what the fuck's going on? And there's all these cops surrounding the place. And there are two different cuts. So depending on which cut you watch, Michael definitely dies. Laurie maybe dies. And Dr. Loomis definitely dies. Yeah. And thus concludes the Rob Zombie trilogy. The kill count for this one, I'm going to say 14 people. We have one dog, farmer's dogs. We have 9 men and 5 women. And then Michael and probably Laurie are killed by the cops. So they don't go into the kill count. So that all happens. To Rob Zombie's credit, he did make this film at the height of like the horror movie franchise reboots. And he did try to explore something that hadn't been explored. Whether it was smart to explore that or not, I don't know. I ultimately do like him. I just wish it was a little bit Rob Zombie. Because he's very crude and dirty and redneck hillbilly, and I don't like that. But I think the idea of what he did was good. I just kind of wish it had been done by someone else. Okay. Oh my god, I finished. Okay, so this, like I said earlier, or at the beginning of this, which was probably like 12 years ago, this franchise does get rebooted like every 10 years. So I'm looking at a 2028 reboot, and I really hope they bring back Paul Rudd to play Tommy Doyle and Josh Hartnett to play John Tate, son of Laurie Strode, aka Carrie Tate, and combine the 4, 5, and 6 H2O and Resurrection timelines. They could do it. It would make sense. Chaos Comics did it. There have been a multitude of fan films that have done it, and they've done it well. And the timelines do make sense, and you could still really do it. Whether or not Michael's the killer or not, we did set up Danny getting to be like the new Thorn, and that could play out well. Steven can go look for his Uncle John. There are a lot of storylines you could do and have bring up that would make sense. I don't know. There's still things you could do. Like the Blumhouse one, I mean, I hope I made it clear that I didn't like it. I think it would have been better if like Laurie was a doctor and she had moved on. She was stable. She had a family. You know, she's not not Sydney, who kept getting attacked. Like, she suffered a severe trauma, but she's healed over time. It's been 40 years. And, you know, maybe she was married and maybe is divorced from Frank Hopkins, and they have a daughter, Karen, who's now married to Ray Nielsen, and they have a daughter, Allison, and she's in high school dating Cameron Elam. Okay, sure. Michael escapes from the institution of his own volition, just like he did in 1978. No podcasters, no evil doctor, no relationship to Laurie. He's like a highway killer. He's just driving down the road, killing people in Haddonfield, slowly making his way home like he did that night. And Laurie gets a patient who was attacked by Michael. Frank is investigating the murders and trying to find him. It's a simple plot, just like the original. That's a good reboot. Then there's one sequel, not two. Laurie is now hunting Michael for revenge because at the end of the previous film, he would have killed her daughter Karen and her husband Ray. I think it would be more interesting if Doug, like I said before, Deputy Doug Mulaney, rather, was the killer. I think that's less irresponsible and far more cathartic and realistic. And it kind of makes more sense why he would be after Allison, and it has less of this weird trauma bonding relationship between them, and there's a lot less bad takeaways regarding society. Laurie will be on a mission to kill Michael, and is sidetracked by the whole Corey Doug thing of it all. And then Michael Myers in the mix of all this, you know, it'll be interesting, it'll be dramatic, it'll be over the top, it's a bit of a hat on a hat, but why not? So I think they have to dispatch Doug. Corey lives. Laurie goes back to Michael's home, and that's where he is. That's where he's always trying to be. Laurie kills Michael in Judith's room. I think that would be the perfect way to end the franchise, which it's not ending. I think that is just so much better. That's a much tighter conclusion. And less gross. And then Frank and Laurie can go see the cherry blossoms, and Allison and Corey can leave Haddonfield forever. Don't Fear the Reaper plays. Boom. Such a better fucking story. My opinion. But I mean, this story does have so many, like, interesting little tidbits and tie-ins that I wonder if they had more of the same people working on these stories, and really sat down and really wanted to, like if they had a Don Mancini, like Child's Playing Chucky did, like, what would Halloween look like? Would it be less fractured in incoherence? I don't know, because it is a simple story that they keep trying to make more and bigger, and that takes away from the story. And I'm not unhappy that we have more sequels, even ones I don't like, because other people like them. So I would never say it's wrong, but I do think what an interesting idea would be if they really just wanted to go crazy with it. What I would love to see is combine them all vis-a-vis a Happy Death Day, Groundhog's Day-esque time loop wherein Michael is the main character, and he's basically been living a time loop, various time loops, where he keeps, like, living out his life, killing people, and then somehow he gets pulled back to 1963, and he's 6 years old all over again, and it just keeps happening and keeps recycling. I think that would be an interesting movie, and we could even have Chris Landon make it, who did do A Happy Death Day and Freaky. I think that would be a really fun way. That could be the way to end this franchise in 2028. Like, that would be so fun. Just, like, bring it all together, make it all canon, and make it weird and interesting and less simple, but also more simple, you know? I think that's the way to do it. Bring someone who actually is going to take a huge swing, right? Yeah. All right. I think that concludes me talking about the Halloween franchise. I'll have some charts and graphs that kind of explain film totals and kill counts and all that stuff to end you towards the conclusion and end of this very, very long video rant thing. I don't know. Yeah, whatever. Bye.